Camera's not there.
Yeah, we just came through, Oscar. We just came through planning and zoning. I couldn't do meetings like that back to how many are you doing every week?
Quite
like
a few.
that?
I spend a good portion of the week in meetings.
What's your hourly commitment, you think, to the county?
Oh, at least 50 hours a week.
Really? Is it that much?
A little closer to the mic, just like depth-wise.
Yeah,
Okay.
right there. Does that look good?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm probably putting 50 hours a weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, on the drive over here, I was just thinking about planning and zoning and how it has, as I got, my little corner of government that I've seen, I've kind of changed my ideas and developed philosophies and have changed my mind about things. You're a year deep into it. I want to know kind of how do you think you have changed in terms of how you think about some of the things in the county are going on.
I just keep learning.
Uh-huh.
There's so much to learn, and it's interesting.
Uh-huh.
And it's fun, and I think that there's just lots of ways that you can go and explore your interest and find ways to do cool, neat things for Grand County.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I saw in that planning and zoning thing, you were talking a lot about the water and stuff. So are you thrown into a water? I was surprised at how much information that you had. I was like, oh wow, Brian.
No,
actually...
I had, the water I know is, see a rock and row away from it.
Right.
That was my, my real knowledge of water, but it's definitely an interest.
Mm-hmm.
I jumped on the GWISA board when I showed up, Grand Water Sewer, and so I started that. I got nominated onto the Colorado River Advisory Council for Southeastern Utah.
Uh-huh.
So that's a group that kind of talks about the concerns on the Colorado.
Right.
I go to the watershed partnership meetings.
Yeah.
And that's between us and San Juan County. So we flip.
Yeah.
We flip each meeting.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about water and kind of how things are going, and
right.
And just how important it is, and it's definitely an interest to me.
Right.
We did a trip last year for the Colorado River Authority Board and took Gene Shawcroft down and Amy Haas, and Oars did all the outfitting.
Uh-huh.
So I got to go along as just guy kind of sitting on the boat
right.
waving, but have all those conversations.
Yeah.
And be able to talk about water and all those kind of things. It was fun. We did this this giant map of the Colorado. So we built the Colorado River system out of rope. Right, so we took this giant rope and we built, the Colorado River and the Green River, and then we just took little rocks and things like that and said, okay, here's this dam right here, and this is where the tributaries come in, and because I think that when we look at the Colorado River, right, all we see is our myopic little vision of I see what's important to me. This is what's right in front of me.
Right.
And to be able to take that broader view and see, what's important to the guy downstream and how the whole system plays together. And, the only reason I'm bringing that up, because it kind of goes back to your first question, what is it? My experience been. It's been a broader perception of things that are happening right here. Right? It's kind of stepping out of just what's important to me, and you have people telling you, oh, this is, and you're like, I've never really thought about that.
Yeah.
Right? It's that whole broader perspective of what does the whole system kind of look like?
Yeah. With the water thing, that was one of the things at the meeting we just had. I hear two sides of things, we've got water for 20,000. More residents, and then we don't have it, and I'm how do you address conflicts like that? I keep pushing this. I'm why can't we have a counter of how much water meters we can put in? Because in Colorado, I was reading out in Colorado Springs, they stopped putting water meters into a development. Will that happen? At what point would that happen to us? Is it a million more? Where would be the stopping point? Do you feel like that number exists?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. And I think that I think that it's very fluid, right? If it does exist, it depends on a lot of other factors, right? Because like when you're asking like how much water exists at what use, right? You know, you were bringing up all these great ideas of things that could happen, right? That you could actually start curbing. What did you say? You could cut someone's water 30% just by going inside of their house, right? So you know when you say
using secondary water, plumbing,
all kinds of different things, right? So it really, I think that question is at what use,
right?
Like, you know, I mean, if you're going to say that you know the demand is going to go up right here with more people, you know, what's the supply side going to do as well? So it's kind of figuring that out.
Where do you fall on that? Like, I feel like there's two spectrums. There's like this unlimited development, and then there's this like maybe a strict conservation side that uses conservation as a mask for anti-development. That's how I see it. I don't know if that's how you see it, or what would you put?
Yeah, we gotta. I mean, it's the number one thing I think that we have to do here. So we're gonna have to build. Right? We're gonna have to build for the future. We're gonna have to build, you know, those eighth of a acre lots, you know, for folks.
Yeah, and we need water to do that. And that's one of the questions I keep coming up against is like, I mean, you just said like you don't know, and I keep coming up against that, and I'm like, maybe like, you know. Does the state know? Like, does Bun Messelman say, like, after 1,000 more meters, I'm not putting another one in?
Yeah,
does he know?
The state is the authority on that.
Yeah. And what's the state saying on that? Is it something like that's out there and you don't know, I don't know, and somebody else knows, or like?
Yeah, I'm sure that, you know, if you asked, you know, Mark Stilson, he'd probably be the guy that I'd go and ask that question to.
Yeah.
You know, and try to figure out, you know, where we're going to reach that. We're going to reach that limit, and I think, you know, that's something that's probably addressed in our 20-year water plan, and it should be something that be addressed in future conservation type of plans as well. But I don't think that we're up against that wall yet, right? I mean, like we were just talking about, you know, there are systems that are available right now. There are new sources that we could develop right now for water that could be used. And
the history of humanity is what we do with less resources. Yep. How to do more with less. I mean, that's kind of like what we do, right? Yeah. Like, so, you know, yeah, that's where I'm like, you know, you're saying increased demand. Oh, well, you know, at what point are we wearing a Paul Atreides still suit and drinking our own pee, you know? Like, you know, that's the ultimate, you know. Yeah, the kind of thing. So you look at like the water plan that we were just looking at, right? And I don't know if you looked at the projected growth of what this county is going to look like, right?
And I just want to say, good luck, right? Because this county is the same size as it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
That's what's interesting. We're growing, but our population isn't growing, but it's shifting. And where do you think it's shifting to?
It's gotten older. It has. I mean, we just at the business summit, you know, USU just gave that study.
Yeah.
We have one of the oldest populations in Utah.
Yeah.
Right now, and that's something scary and something that we need to take into consideration. Right.
Yeah. What do you think is contributing to that?
What's contributing to that? Well,
is it the same people getting older? Are we getting retirees? Are we not attracting kids? What's your story on it?
I think it's all of it, right? What's the number one export in Utah?
Oh, I don't know.
Oscar, you know what the number one export in Utah is? It's children.
Okay.
That's it.
Right.
That's the number one thing that we export here.
That's going to be
right?
like yellow
and so,
cake.
You know, what do we do to find out how we keep kids here? Something we were just talking about it today in our housing subcommittee. You know, it's where that vision is, and me and you, we've talked about it before, right? And I think it's coming up with that whole plan. Like we really, I think we've done, you know, some great innovative things here as far as housing goes.
Yeah.
You know, we've come up with some great projects and we've done some small things, but I don't know if anyone's really taken that big holistic look at, you know, like, hey, let's talk about that kid who just graduates high school, right? And how does he stay here in Grand County? Mm-hmm. What does that look like all the way until he owns a home? Right, like follow that path all the way through. Like walk through those steps.
Right,
you know,
because you have teenagers, you're thinking about
totally, yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think those steps are?
I don't know exactly what those steps are, right? Like, I'm going to be honest, I don't have the answer for it. But I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to start walking in those steps. Like, what does that look like, right? You're in high school, you're ready to move out of your parents' house, right? Like, is there a place that you can afford, to move into working here in Grand County? Taking what do they use the McDonald's minimum wage, right? Like theory, right? Whatever McDonald's is paying is the minimum wage.
Right.
Can you make that work? Can you make that work to afford a place to live? Right. And then how long in that, and what quality are you having while you're there that you want to stay? Right? And what carrot is there for you to move to that next step? Right? Is that moving into a lease to own? Is that, finding a way that you're going to be able to join some kind of program where you're going to be able to save up enough money to buy?
Right.
Because that's the next big step. Like, we got two big concerns when I look at our stock, right? Is A, we don't have enough of that low income, right? And then B, the step from that up to the next level is a huge step.
Yeah.
There are none of those little building blocks to move into that home ownership stage.
Yeah, I brought this up at the business summit. I was not making enough money to qualify for affordable housing, working for the largest commercial plumbing outfit in Southeast Utah. Minimum wage for affordable housing is $27.50 an hour, which people are like, oh my God, that's a lot. But I think there's this thing where people think about hourly wage and then they talk about salary. For some reason, there's a hang up in Americans' minds. It's like, I made $80,000 a year. But if you broke that into an hourly wage, they're like, oh my God, that's so much. But I feel like there's this level, I've experienced it, to jump from working wage per hour into a salary wage is like this major monumental jump people have to make. And when you say $27.50 an hour, that you're getting into salary wage territory on that. That's why I feel the psychology. There's this psychology behind it.
Dude, there's a big gap. It's something when I've been up in the legislature, I've been trying to explain to folks. Right? So when you talk about poverty, right? So the standard hasn't changed since the 1960s.
Oh yeah,
right? We've had the same way that we look at it since the 1960s. And so one of the big factors is 30-20-10. Okay? And so what that means is 20% of your population has been below the poverty level for 30 years, which means that they should get 10% of the funding.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I could be wrong, but I think San Juan County is the only 30-20-10 county in the state of Utah right now. Right. And so, but when you look at Grand County, we're a little bit different. We sit at about, depending on how you look at it, between 16 and 17%. Right. That's where we're at. So we're just underneath, right, that limit. Right?
Right.
But when you take in consideration our cost of living, because it's 10% more expensive to live in Grand County than it is anywhere else, right? When you take that in, we're up closer to 33 or 34%, right? And I was up there talking to folks, and it just hit so hard. And I don't know how many people you think that this fits, right? I make too much money to qualify for any type of subsidies, but I don't make enough money to make ends meet every month.
Yeah. And I think that caused a lot of strife in the community because people are working hard and they're like, well, what's government doing for me? Right? That's a question that comes up a lot. I see these programs, but what's my program? And it's like we have all these needs for such a bottom end. It can be an infinite amount of money pit, and it's like, well, you could throw all your money at the lower part, but this causes class divides and stuff.
Yeah, and I think you're missing out on another important part of that, right? Once again, talking about that broader perspective, right? So you focus, you're like, here's where the poverty is at. This is where the need is the greatest, right? Well, you're not looking at what's dumping into that pool, right? And so you have all these working folks that are literally right there on the teeter, right there.
Yeah, one medical cost away.
Dude, medical costs, your brakes go out.
Yeah.
Your brakes go out and you're like, dude, I am definitely so far under this month.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to be able to afford this $600 or $700, unexpected cost that's coming up? I mean, I know a lot of people like that. I've lived like that a bunch.
Yeah.
I don't know about yourself. You know, if you've been there to where it's like something small can come
For
up
sure.
and you're like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm under.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And how am I going to cover something like that? And that constant fear of how that plays in, right? And so unless we're focusing on those folks and making sure that we have services to keep them propped up as well, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What do you
know?
think that is then? What services do those people need?
You know, I think that's a good idea for a mobility plan, right? I think that's something that we definitely need here.
A mobility, class mobility plan, wage mobility. Yeah.
All of it. An economic mobility plan is something that I'm pushing for right now. Is trying to figure out a way. I mean,
What are you pushing that for in? What mechanism are you using? You say I'm pushing that plan. Like
I'm pushing to have that plan developed.
Okay.
Right here. So that was one of the things that we were up talking about, and it's a bill right now up at the House.
Oh, you're pushing it at a state level.
At a state level,
Oh, okay.
I'm up there trying to push this. And so this is SB 165. And so it does two things. So first off, it takes, I think, $5 million from the legislature, right? So from the state, they're going to try to put in $5 million. They're going to try to take that money and leverage it through investors, through the United States, right, to invest in Utah. The projection that they're looking for is $100 million to come in. Of that, the counties will be, allocated certain funds for, based on needs. I can't remember. I think it's something like, if you took it like per county, you'd be looking at right around $300,000 to develop your plan. And it's really a plan to put all of your assistance in one little package. Right. So to take, your food security plan, right. To take your housing scarcity, right. And putting all that into one idea, so you can kind of look at it at that whole picture of how are we really going to help people to make sure that the people who are here have the opportunity to keep moving up through the scales.
So your idea is the idea would be like, the state starts giving the $300,000.
That's for the plan.
For the plan.
$2 million of that would be to actually scale it and implement it.
Okay.
Right?
And would you be like, I'm on the economic development side of things. I mean, we get grants, there's the 2 grants, but we also kind of have this it's a board that talks about how to develop things economically. Do you see it run through that, or is it a commission? Like, what would the mechanism look like?
I don't know just yet. Right now, we're trying to make sure that the
plan,
the funding's there and the plan's there. I still think that it's something that we need to be looking at, whether that comes through or not. Right, it's still something that Grand County needs to be looking at.
Yeah.
Right, we need to be making sure that we have, just like the housing, right, that you follow the steps. Right, someone who's sitting there and they are being subsidized, right? How do we take that person and how do we help them move through? Right. And those points where it's critical, where they're on that teeter-totter, where do we make sure that we're providing services, so that they can move up?
Right.
I had that when I came here to Grand County. I was inside the Crown program, right, which was a lease to own program.
Yep.
And so what they did on that program was they actually gave you your lease was lower than what market rate rent would be.
Right.
Right. So it allowed you time to save up some money. And they said, 15 years, you're going to have the opportunity to buy this house. Right. And so, you take some of that pressure off, and you really let the person, go ahead and do whatever they need to do so that they can get themselves ready to have home ownership. Yeah. And then, that just starts, the next phase of moving it on through.
What would be, just spitballing here, what would be some of your ideas for that plan? That's why I'm like, you say, we need the plan, but I don't know, what general idea do you think? Do you think it's, I personally think in Utah, because of how things are with labor relations, you just need to promote entrepreneurship. I think that is a very Utah-friendly response. Are you going to be I don't think people in Utah are going to be we spend $300,000 for union formations, state's not going to love that, right? So, what are you seeing that? I'm just throwing out entrepreneurship. What do you see? housing support or
Sure. Well, I mean, here was one of the things that we were talking about, right? So right now, we have these. We have seasonal business.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have this, this big hump in the spring, and then also a big burst in the fall. Right. But then you have a valley basically in the summer and in the winter. Mm-hmm. Now, if that stayed, if that was the constant model, right, you could work around it. You'd look at that and be like, oh, okay, the opportunities here and the opportunities are there.
Right.
But I mean, that thing has been moving around, for years.
Oh, I mean, with the no snow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of like, town's busy. Like I have a hard time making a left out of Mountain View. I'm like, that's never happened before.
You remember 10 years in October?
Yeah.
It was like,
that
was me and my buddy's time. Like, that was it. There was nobody here. I mean, there was, I used to call it,
So we have a more steady
things change,
stream.
right? Things change. Mm-hmm. So, one idea might be, how do we, as we are able to build up that supply side, right? As we can get some of those lower income homes, how do we make sure that we're getting people that are actually staying here year round, right? That's going to be another challenge that we're going to have to face, right? Is how do we make sure that there's people that are going to want to stay here year round?
Yeah. What do you think makes somebody want to stay in Moab?
What's that?
What do you think makes, I think about throughout the years, what has made the people who live here stay? Like, it's an odd group, right? Like, a lot of people leave. I've had roommates come and go, but some of them stick around, right? And friends. Like, what is it about it? What do you think
they drink the water at Matrimony Springs. Whatever it is, I think I can only talk from my experience. I think it's opportunity.
I'll throw this at you. I think the type of person that tends to move here is very committed to a recreational identity, right? They are like, I mountain bike, I climb, and so I stay here and I'm willing to sacrifice X, Y, and Z. I have that thought, right? It's like, I can't, I might not be able to get a higher paying job, but I'm able to climb all the time. And I admit that I have a very limited perspective. My perspective is broadened in Moab over the years, who actually lives here. But I feel like my generation, and maybe we're kind of close in age, that's what happened with our group moving through. And I see the young, I don't know what the young kids are up to right now, right? Like, Oscar, it's like, I hear a lot of parents being like, get the heck out, move away. And that's promoted by a certain class of the parents here. So then I think about what people stay, what makes them stay. And I feel like that's a weird grit. I go other places and I'm like, man, I feel back at home in Moab, kind of thing. And there's nothing else to do. I go home to Ohio. In 2 days, I want to jump off the roof for entertainment. So there's that. So what have you seen people make people stay through the years?
I mean, like I said, first you got to have an opportunity.
Yeah, opportunity.
I think you do have to have that opportunity to stay.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard. Not everybody gets that opportunity to stay.
Okay.
I think that's one thing that has to happen. And then, I mean, I like that idea that, you're attached to a recreational type of thing. But I mean, I think there's been a lot of people that I've met that are not attached to a recreational type of thing.
For sure.
And there's a lot of families here.
Yeah.
That are staying here because it's a good place to raise their kids.
Yeah.
And it is. Mm-hmm. It's a great place.
But it may not be a good place for the kids to stay. And that's what you were saying, basically. And it's like, we need to make that, what's that secret sauce making kids stay, right?
Yeah, I think you need to play the tape all the way through. Mm-hmm. What's it going to be? Where do we need to make sure that there's those opportunities so that they can stay, or even if they leave, that they can come back, right? Because I think that's another thing as well.
Right. Because I often look at that, the housing thing, and I'm like, it's just not here. It's a lot of places, this housing crisis is a national problem. Housing prices are up everywhere. And it's like, well, now there's not an advantage to leave Moab because it's just as expensive in Salt Lake.
Yeah. So. I mean, there's so often, I talk to folks and they come up with this idea that Moab is this special, unique butterfly. That these problems are unique to Moab and they'll only. No, I mean, they're happening all over.
Yeah.
I mean, the governor's saying, like, we are going to start increasing supply. Right? I mean, everybody keeps saying we need to increase supply. There's a bill moving through the House right now that is to increase supply of housing. On a federal level.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like you said, it's happening everywhere. And everyone's looking at that starter home. Where do we get folks into that?
Yeah.
And then you come into that kind of argument sometimes of like, do people want to own a house?
Yeah.
Right? Like they're like, oh, there's a lot of people that don't want to own a house. And I think that's just because they don't have the opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else have you been working? You've been, I know the state legislature, but you just surprised me with some of these projects. I had no clue. You mentioned right before this, the ACE program. Is there some things that you've been working on you kind of want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about that. So that was it was an access plan for Arches National Park.
Okay.
Right. So kind of walk you back a little bit. So was that 2024? Right. They put out a visitor use management plan for Arches National Park. And so that's talking about how they want to manage the visitors inside of Arches. The options that we were given, right, they put out 3 alternatives, right? So of those alternatives, one is always got to be no action, right? So you had no action, keep things just the way that they are.
And this is the national park presenting to the county?
This is the national park presenting to the general public.
General public, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So this is the national parks, visitor use management plan that gets put out, right? And so they put that out, and then they, it's the EA, the environmental assessment, however you want to look at it. So on that, you have no action. So let's just keep running the park the way that we've run the park since, I don't know, 1960, something like that. And then the other alternative was to have the timed entry reservation system. And then the other plan was a reservation system, right? So those were the 2 options right there. That plan got stopped right there. And the state and the Department of Interior asked if we had any other options. Like, what are some other alternatives that we could consider? Right. And so having been part of that conversation since 2013, I literally have. It was the first time that I actually spoke up at a city council meeting. It was in the city. Yeah. It was Kate Cannon was up there and we were talking about Arches. And back then it was all about the shuttle system. And so we were talking about how we were going to implement a shuttle system, if we were going to implement a shuttle system, what that would look like. That was kind of where that conversation started. So I've been involved with it for quite a few years and, paying attention to it. So, when I wrote that plan, it was just from ideas that I've heard from, the past 10 years, past 12 years, was just kind of putting them into action. And I kind of thought of it as
so go through the details of that plan or bullet
totally.
points.
Yeah. But, just the idea of it first, it's like, I kept thinking like, man, the timed entry seems like a way to restrict use, right? Like it's restricting people to get into the park. Is there a way that we can increase access? So rather than saying that the park is too full, right? Let's come up with a new way to manage the park to where we can allow people to come in and have different experiences, right? So access over restriction was kind of the idea.
So we need to flip the.
Yeah.
Now we'll.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea is how do we allow for visitation to continue the way that it is, right, and still provide the same or a better experience for our visitors, right?
But the visitation you're planning to like how to accommodate more visitation.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So when I looked at it, right, you go back to like 1980, I think 6 or 89, I can't remember, when they did their last big management plan, right? And so the park is set up like, what I think of that was like the same year that the Griswolds You know, like family vacation.
Right.
Do you remember like that picture of like them driving through Monument Valley, right? Like
yeah.
with the, you know, the suitcase flying off and that, and what was that car? What kind of like station wagon?
Yeah, it's the wood paneled side. So that's the last time that
and that was the way that folks visited national parks, right?
yeah.
You would go, you'd drive, you'd get out, you check things out, right? You get back in your car, you go and you drive.
Yeah.
And really, that's the experience that we're offering people in Arches right now.
Right.
So let's take one little spot and let's just look at the windows and the balanced rock area. Okay, so that's like 1.5 miles. If you kind of just went a big little circle around it, right? So you go into the park, you stop at Balanced Rock, you go for a small little walk, you get back in your car. You drive over to the Garden of Eden, you get out of your car, you go check out the Garden of Eden. You drive over to the Cove of Caves, you stop, you get out, you go check out the Cove of Caves. Get back in your car, you go over to the windows, get out of your car, go check out the windows. If there's parking available down below, you go drive down over to Double Arch, you get out of your car and you go check out Double Arch, and then you get in, and that's how you've explored that district of the park.
Right.
It is 1.5 miles.
Right.
Right? There is an old road that connects all of that. I mean, how cool would it be if you could actually just park your car, right? And that you could walk from Balanced Rock over to Garden of Eden, from Garden of Eden over to the Cove of Caves, over to the windows, over to Double Arch right there, right? That's part of it right there. So it's expanding the trails.
Right.
Hold on, because you really need to. It'll take me just a second.
Yeah.
You need to look at it as a whole system.
Yeah.
Right. So there's all these little things that are in there. So I mean, I think that most people would say that would be a really neat idea. You know, to have connectivity of our trails.
Right.
Most people like that idea.
Yep.
Right. The other idea on that, then we're just talking about this one district, right? Is they're doing connector path from, you know, the brand trails basically all the way up to Utah Raptor State Park. So that bike path is going to be there, right? And then going from Utah Raptor State Park to have a bike path that goes right into Balanced Rock. Okay, so now we're talking about being able to have a bike that you could go ahead and hop on in Moab, right? And you could ride all the way into Balanced Rock.
Yeah, like this weekend, I rode up to Willow Springs, or I rode up Balanced Rock, across Willow Springs and down.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like, it's like a weird gravel bike ride.
It is,
People do it around here.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's cool.
Yeah.
But what if that was like level 1 easy biking?
Yeah.
And people could rent an e-bike in town, or people could even go to Raptor State Park and get an e-bike and then drive in.
Right.
Then with that new hiking trail system, they could tie their bike up at Balanced Rock and they could go have that whole experience. Balanced Rock, all those arches, hop back on their bike and then ride back into town.
Yeah, I think what you're getting to is that like we're not Griswolds anymore.
We're not Griswold.
And-
It's expanded. And so let's keep going though on it, because it
Well, I just
keeps
wanted
moving.
to summarize
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying.
No,
so
you
far.
got it. Like, right.
So we've changed. We had this plan. Now visitation has grown into that plan to make it feel too crowded. So now we need timed entry, right? Because it's managing too big of a crowd because we didn't plan for a bigger crowd. Is that kind of the heart of your argument?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So we're trying to use 1986 technology.
Right.
Right. In 2026.
Right.
Right.
With three times the amount of visitors or whatever, 20 times, whatever it is.
There's tons that we can talk about, you know, as that happened. Right. And so the next part of that would be the shuttle system. Okay. So a shuttle system, and this is just my plan. And when we talked about shuttle systems, they never seemed feasible. And the reason is because the shuttle system started at the visitor center and it went all the way through the park and then it came back. Right. And so if you have a shuttle system like that, you're going to have lots of gaps, right? How long would you have to wait at Devil's Garden before, you know, a vehicle left the visitor center, went out to the windows, went out to Delicate Arch, then finally made it out to Devil's Garden, right? It'd be a long time, right? And they'd be like, oh, they can't have people out there waiting. But the one thing that never really got explored well was a hub spoke system, right? So inside that plan, the way I had it is, so we would continue the funding for our Moab area transit. In fact, we'd have to increase it. We could use that to pick folks up at their hotels, bring them to the Arches Visitor Center. From the Arches Visitor Center, you have a big 90-person bus that runs all the way up to Balanced Rock. And then from Balanced Rock, the folks could either get out, they could go for a hike right there out to the windows, or there could be like a little spoke, right? So you have one shuttle that just goes back and forth to Delicate Arch, another shuttle that just goes back and forth to the Devil's Garden, right? So you have those two little spokes kind of going like that, and then people can move around. Now, if you think about that, plus the expanded connectivity over in the Windows area, plus there's expanded connectivity over in the Devil's Garden area, right? There's actually a really cool trail. Have you ever hiked that trail that goes actually from the Delicate Arch viewpoint right there into Delicate Arch? Through the wash right there. It's cool.
Like a good local.
Yeah. There's these old little carved out steps that kind of like go down in there.
Huh.
But anyways,
No, I haven't gone
it's
there.
way cool, right? So we could actually make Delicate Arch a loop hike.
Yeah.
And that would relieve a bunch of the pressure right there. On top of that, there's the whole section of like Lost Canyon over in there. And there's tons of spots and opportunities to make some great overlook hikes to where you can actually see a couple of arches. And there's even a trail system that you can use to connect the Delicate Arch little complex over to the Devil's Garden. It would actually hook right up into like Sand Dune Arch. Come on over in there. So you can connect the connectivity of those trails and make more like complex kind of like hiking areas, which would relieve a whole bunch of that pressure of people kind of being there.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you had people hiking both ways, going to Delicate Arch, when you're at the actual arch, there's going to be more people. But for the rest of the time, it's going to feel a whole lot less crowded, if you have that option. And I mean, I think one of the reasons I don't even really go to arches that often, like on my own personal time, is there's just not that many big adventures anymore, right? Like we've done them all. Like there's not a lot of big, long hikes. And, I think that it would be fantastic to have bigger hikes, longer hikes. I think that's one of the things that people were asking for when they did those surveys is they wanted more trails. People are more active right now. You look at Utah.
Oh yeah, my dad. When we took a national park trip, and I think we walked a total of a mile. Like it was like walk. What are you talking about? We don't walk. We're not walking, family. What's wrong with you? And people are different now. So the culture has changed. So that's kind of been. And it's like, wow, public transportation and stuff like that,
Dude,
like that's what you're...
Yeah, multimodal.
I have often thought if we could just get rid of all the like I rode my bike into arches and I'm like, man, it's okay, but it's like, traffic's passing you. You got to be kind of brave and a little dumb. And it's like, man, if you could just decrease the traffic by 20% by putting more people on buses, that would be a plus for me. What do you say to there's a lot of I got theories about this, why people are what do you see the arguments against it? Where is that coming from here in town? Straw man, you're where do you probably see pushback and stuff. What are people saying to you about that pushback and how do you respond to it?
I think that it comes down to a public lands kind of like issue. Folks think that this is the way to go, right? Is to move into reservations, and I don't know if they are looking for any other alternatives.
What do you think the mentality behind you doing a reservation system is? What's the base thought?
I think that they see that it does work, right? Like there is parts of it that work. Right, it is a great experience.
Yeah.
Right, like if you got to go to do something that didn't cost you any more money, right? And you got a better experience at the expense of other people.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the other part that you have to figure. Like there's this whole other big group of people that are not getting to experience the park, and these folks are getting the chance to go experience the park, right, at the expense of these other folks who are not able to make it in.
Okay.
Right? So their experience is better, but their experience they don't have an experience. Right? I can't remember, what is it, like 1 in 8 cars get turned around?
Yeah.
Like that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
That's not an okay thing.
I often thought there could be things like you're stopping people and taking payment, and it's like each interaction takes so much time. So I rode my bike and I went in to buy a season pass. And they're like, oh, we don't take payment here. And I was like, well, I'm not standing in line on my bike to pay. Screw it. I'm just going to go. So, somebody bust me. But, I tried to buy one. But I often am like, that is so archaic. Like, dude, we're in times of phones where you just wave your phone and get passed through. I mean, I often thought, like, just ideas like that. I'm like, how about we put in another, kiosk or something? I don't know. Some of those things are so basic. But what I was going to say...
It's great that you bring that up because you know what? That's inside the plan.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the big keys. And actually the Department of the Interior is working on that right now.
Right.
So it's just implementing that.
But one of the problems, though, is like putting a 4-lane highway into arches probably isn't a good idea. Yeah. Like, it takes away from experience. And I think the argument, what I was going to say then, I think the argument is a lot of people are like, this is enough. Like, this is like 1.6 million visitors, not a drop more is bad for the park. And like what you're saying is, well, you're taking that expense of other people. How do you kind of circle that square? Like, I would say their argument is like, this has become like there's a limit. Like, what's the limit? Like, what's the limit for you in the park?
I asked that question when they first started the timed entry.
Yeah.
What's the capacity?
Yeah.
You know what the
answer
answer
is? But for you...
No. What is the capacity of arches?
No clue.
You know why?
Yeah.
Because they've never told us what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think...
define the capacity
I think we know the
first.
capacity a little bit is like when the crowds come out to 191. Like, that is... I mean, when there's cars parked out to 191. Like, that's a capacity issue,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, we know that, but it's not happening 24/7, 12 months a year, right? So we know that is that's probably the capacity, just in what part, and was it getting worse, And so, but I just want to know, like, that would be a lot of people's argument against you. And what would you say to that? Like, there's enough, no more. Like, whatever visitation, that's it, kaput. Like, you're degrading the park any further.
Okay, so where are we degrading the park? I'd want to know first. Second, who judges what?
Well, I mean, Edward Abbey would be like, the road degrades the park. Like, you should crawl across arches on bloody knees. And that's what I'm saying. Some people, I'm just saying, like, I'm not taking their side.
No.
I'm just saying, like, that's the argument.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's different for different people, Like, somebody in Manhattan is like used to being around people. I see one other person on a trail and my day's ruined. I mean, not really, but that's what I'm saying. Some people are like, I only go to places that aren't visited by other people. So I think, and I think people are anti-change. They like it how it was. I think everybody has moved to Moab when they thought it was the best time.
Totally.
So I just want to answer that criticism on there. What would you say about it? You're being selfish? Is that what you're saying?
No. I would say that why do we have to deal in such absolutes?
Okay.
Right? Like you just gave me some solid absolutes.
Yeah.
Right? But you're talking about a gigantic national park.
Yeah.
Right? And why are we not willing to say that some places should be managed for groups? Right? If you were going to go see Old Faithful, do you expect to have that experience by yourself?
Yeah. No.
But why do you expect to go see the symbol of arches of Utah, right? Delicate Arch. Why do you expect to have that same experience?
And I guess the only thing I would say to that question, though, is I don't go to Old Faithful.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's just a circus.
Yeah.
And I mean, but
our economy is based off of it.
Right, exactly.
Right? So that's where we get the ability to talk about it, right?
Right.
Like our economy is based off of it. And if you look at where we're at, we are 4 straight years in the red.
Yeah.
Like take that in, right? That means that the majority of businesses
in Arches or
in Grand County.
Grand County.
In Grand County are in the red.
Yeah.
Right? Grand County itself is in the red. Right? We have been going down. Now, is that slowly curbing? I sure hope so.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll start to see that. I think that there's been some effects that we've tried to make on the economy. We can talk about that if you want as well. that have caused some positive change, or at
Right.
least tried to arrest that fall.
Okay.
But I mean, we've been in a fall for 4 years.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it. We're trying to offer the same level of services with less money coming in.
Right. Right.
You know, and how do we make those cuts?
Yeah. Yeah. So, tell the other positive developments that you feel like you guys been doing with
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've put a pretty good push on advertising.
advertising.
You know, I think that we've done a good job on it. I think it's been done pretty respectfully. You know, as we're kind of waiting to go through. I mean, it's been a big push. You know, we got a new branding agency that we brought on. We have
the Madden, like, what is that like?
no, Madden's the agency of record. So they're the ones actually placing all of our ads.
Okay, because I was
Right.
like, is that like Madden, like the football game? Like that? Is it that? Like,
No, they're
okay.
different. But yeah,
Okay.
that's the name of the company.
Oh,
is
I was
Madden.
just like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So,
I have no.
yeah. So you have Madden, and they're the ones placing all of our ads.
Okay.
And they're doing a great job. You know, you look at some of the stuff that they've been doing, and it's, you know, they're actually doing the work.
Okay.
And then we have a branding agency, which is kind of coming up just with, you know, how the world perceives Grand County. You know, how does the world, you know, when they see Moab, what do they think? You know,
Right.
what does the flavor of these ads look like? You know, when we send out a brochure, what does that look like? Trying to make sure that everything looks like it came from the same place.
Right,
You know,
right.
you think about it, like think of Moab's brand in the time that you've been here. Right? Can you think of any of the campaigns?
Well, I mean, so I came here
Yeah.
because I grew up working at a bike shop, and it had a poster of the Poison Spider
Yeah.
on it, and it wasn't Josh Laurie. It was I can't forget the guy, but I remember just being like, oh well, you know, one of the guys had brought it back from a trip out here. That's how I knew about the place. So I was like, oh, I went to that bike. I ended up working there. So that's the brand, I guess. You know, like, you
So
know, that was
it was
yeah.
the biking that brought you
Yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
On a branded, like, you know, on a poster in a bike shop. That's
Sure.
what got me here.
Yeah, so that's what got you here. And then, like, further
What was
on-
yours?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I came here for the Colorado River.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I'd worked
The
at...
mighty Colorado.
Dude,
Yeah.
the mighty. I was working on the Arkansas River, right, out in Buena Vista.
Yeah.
And the company that I worked for, they'd send you out on these big, long missions. So you'd go out, you'd go up, and you'd go run the North Platte. Right, and then you'd come across and you'd go run Desolation Canyon.
Okay.
And then you'd come back from Deso and you'd go get stuck on Shoshone for a little while. You'd go drop down into the Gunnison, and then you'd go over to the Chama. Right, and so you'd make that, and then you'd come back and run the Arkansas River for the rest of the season.
Right.
So you did this big old, big loop, which is way cool.
And then how'd you even get into raft guiding in the beginning?
That was from my dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was cool. We would go out, I was a stepdad, so I'd get off school, right, on Friday, and I'd pack up this old Tacoma, just jam it packed full of all the rafting stuff. The boat was all rolled up and everything. And he'd come home, we'd hop in that truck, and then we'd go boating for the weekend.
Huh.
I was like 14, 15,
And then you're
16.
like, I should do this as a job.
Yeah, dude, I mean, it was pretty obvious. Like, I'm like 18. I'm like, oh, this seems pretty.
Yeah.
This seems cooler than doing anything else.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I was doing stuff like that, and it was awesome.
Okay.
But anyway, so I'd come out to Desolation Canyon. I was running Deso, and I'd run into these guys, and they're like, "Yeah, Cataract's running at like 50,000." I'm like, "CFS? Like they make rivers that big?" Like, I'm running on the Arkansas River where 2,000 CFS was like that was a massive flow, and I'm like, I gotta see what 50,000 CFS looks like. And I came back out here, and I mean, it was just like, it was the start of the drought. Like, it was just like one drought year, next drought year.
Okay.
I didn't see it for a little while. And then 2005 was the first big water year. And I remember that year, it was awesome. We came out here and there was, tons of legends actually had to come back out and kind of like teach people how to boat again, because it'd been so long since they'd seen high water, so the older, the raft guides, they were fantastic at running Cataract at 3,000, 5,000 CFS. They'd come up with all these cool little rock dodging moves, but nobody'd seen it, at,
50,000,
50,000, 60,000.
Yeah.
And, you go down there with 10 people in a J-rig, and it's just like, you're in the waves of the mile long.
I've seen videos.
Dude,
I've never been to Cataract
Yeah.
Canyon. I've gotten out always beforehand. I've taken canoe down and
Yeah,
stuff. So yeah,
But yeah,
I would love to
that's
see that.
that's what brought me here. That
Okay.
was kind of the branding, and
Yeah.
if I had to say what were the the ads and the things like that, it was probably some of the national park videos. I don't know if you ever remember like the the desert can kill you with its lack of water, and it kind of like shows it, or its abundance, and then they show the big the boats going through. But
Yeah.
that was kind of like
I just
my
remember
phase.
thinking that quicksand was going to be a way more problem.
It has been lately, huh?
Oh yeah, that one person.
No,
Yeah.
we had one that was there was a local lady
really?
that got caught same
Yeah.
wash.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah,
ago
and
back,
that you would get lost in the desert, which is impossible because it's sunny out and the mountains are that way. Like you can't get lost. Like you get lost in the woods, you can't get lost in the desert. I mean, you can,
Yeah.
but whatever.
Yeah,
So-
but getting back to those branding, but then we had like the what was it like the Moab, like adventure base camp, and then we kind of had the the ferry shrimp little thing that we
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
did, and we had the do it like a local kind of campaign, and then we had the what was the last one that we had? Responsible recreation.
Yeah.
And so you have all of these basically campaigns, and you have these materials from all of these
Yeah.
different kind of like shots, and nothing matches, right? And I think that's the big thing with this branding is just try to get something that looks good and looks professional. And,
Yeah. I feel that there's people talk about overcrowding
Yeah.
being like a brand, like we're on, and it's like, I guess your thing with the park is talking about how to alleviate overcrowding. And I guess that counter argument goes against that. It's like saying instead of limiting people, you're saying to pack in, like manage them differently. And that's what we need to do.
There needs to be spots where there is groups.
Yeah.
Right, like
Yeah.
I think that the experience of being able to sit under the north window, right, all by yourself, right, like that's a cool experience.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's a season for that.
Yeah.
It's called winter.
Yeah.
Right, where you
Yeah.
can go out to the windows right now, and you could be out there all by yourself all night.
Yeah.
Right, like that exists. But to go to the windows in the middle of May
Yeah.
and think that you're going to be the only person and get that experience.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. Like
Exactly.
that should be a spot where you expect to see people. Now, are there other arches and other places that you can go?
Oh, yeah.
That you can go? Like, I mean, that's awesome, right? Like that experience still exists here in Moab, but we just can't expect that experience at that time is always going to be.
Honestly, I view arches
Yeah.
as the sacrifice zone. Yes, it's pretty. I'll go in the winter, but that's one of my things to the arguments against like kind of the non-timed entry or your plan. I'm kind of like I don't really care. I expect it to be over touristed. I kind of just stay away from it. So I've like, and a lot of my friends are like, I hate that like timed entry. I'm just like, really? Is this what you're gonna bother? I'm just kind of like, I'm not bothered by it because I have already written arches off, right? For my like I'm gonna go somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm just kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, like, who's going to Arches in May anyways, unless your family comes, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what if there was new experiences there?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, take this for example. What if you jumped on a shuttle outside you walked out to Main Street, jumped on a shuttle, and you got dropped off at Courthouse Wash,
Yeah.
and you were able to hike Courthouse
down.
Wash
Yeah.
all the way back to Moab and hop on a shuttle and come back home?
Right.
I'd
Right.
probably go do that in the
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Yeah,
You
for
know?
sure.
That's how I would use the park, right?
Yeah.
But then we also have to understand, like, it's not just that. It's how does that park affect us, our economy, right? Like, we have taken a huge hit since timed entry. You
Right.
can't deny that.
Right.
Right, like
Yeah.
our economy.
No.
Now, whether you say that it was caused by it or these are two separate like things, right?
Yeah.
Like our economy has taken a tank since timed entry went in.
Uh-huh.
And then you look at October of last year when we had the shutdown, right? Timed entry was removed involuntarily, right, from the park, and we saw a 20% increase in revenue year over year. They saw a 17% increase in visitation at the park, right? Now that's that was unique to us. That didn't happen down in Zion. That didn't happen in Bryce. That
So
didn't happen in Capitol Reef.
You're saying that because people have been saying, well, it was Trump's policies and stuff that caused visitation to go
Price
down.
of eggs,
Yeah.
right?
Inflation and stuff, yeah.
You can say whatever it is, right? But like I thought that was a fantastic case study.
Yeah.
I'm not putting it as, this is an absolute, right? But I'm saying it's kind of interesting to say,
Yeah.
right? Like, hey, this happened and this was the result right here.
Right.
Now, could there have been other things that attributed it? Of course, right? Like nothing is ever black and white.
I often wonder, recreation is a activity that you have extra money for. And as people have, there's this inflation crisis and wages and costs have gone up for people. I'm like, I always thought about Moab as kind of like a cheap vacation because you could, I first started coming here because I could drive my Corolla, camp for $5 a night, and be back for a tank of gas. It was $40. It was cheaper to come out to Moab than to hang around the house.
Totally.
And so that's kind of where that's where I'm kind of
Dude, I'm the same exact way. So
we built our recreation around more like hotels, and it's well, now we don't have hotel money. We're back on camping money.
That kind of gets back to that when we were talking about this branding project and why it's important to have community outreach, right? Is because we don't want to lose that. Aaron, I think that's something that's core to us is making sure that you're still reaching out to those guys. And
because those are your tomorrow's people that they moved up and they're at the Element, right?
Yeah, because so when the Madden, Agency of Record came in, we said, all right, what are the opportunities for Grand County? What can we do? And they're like, you know what you guys need to do? Your best opportunity is you guys should be going for affordable luxury. That's where that's where you guys are gonna thrive the best, right? And there were some people that are like, yeah, okay, this is where we're gonna turn the economy around. Let's do it. And I was the firm stop that said no, absolutely not. Right? That's not who we are. Right? I don't want to become Aspen. I don't want that's exactly what Telluride did. Right? They went for that. That's what you see in Sedona is they said no. These are the people that are going to bring in the most money. Right? We still need to make sure that we're advertising and telling those quirky people, the people that you're like, these are the guys that stay here. They're all quirky, right? We all got our own little thing, right? We need to make sure that we're telling that story of hey, these are the people that you're going to find here, and these are and this is part of that story. And I think that's hard. That's a lot harder to do is to keep your identity, right? Especially when you're having an economic crisis.
Yeah. So, all right.
That
Which
sounds good.
you hit play?
Yeah.
So Oscar just said a gem. What'd you say? Brian Mondami for free buses for Arches.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's we'll wind down here. It's kind of late. What's something you want to talk about?
I don't know. Hit me with a couple questions.
Well,
you've asked me about what I've been doing, and I kind of slammed it. What do you want to ask?
what do I want to ask?
Yeah.
Those were it. I'm kind of curious at what other things you had going on in the State House.
Yeah.
That was really interesting.
Yeah. So the other things that we're working on right now up there. There's three other big projects. So right now it's less about bills. So the state's cutting 5%. Right. So just like the county had to go through that, in January, we're like, man, we're going to have to cut 5% off, and that's tough. The state's coming in that same way. So it's a lot of the appropriations that they're looking to cut. And one of the first things they always want to cut is arts and culture. Right. And so there's a rural film incentive. That Grand County has benefited from, year after year. I can't think of a year that we haven't had a big film come in. And, film is, it's a big part of who we are, right? We've done, tons of films, and they seem like they always come in right in the middle of summer when we need it the most. It's just oh man, things are drying up. And why do they come in the summer? Right? Because things are a little bit cheaper, and then get a better deal, I imagine. But, they come in because of these rural film incentives. So that's part of, when they're going out, they're like, all right, well, we can go film Red Rocks in Arizona. We can go film Red Rocks Rocks in New Mexico, or we can go film Red Rocks in Utah. And so one of their considerations is of course we got the best locations. Like we really do have some of the best assets, to shoot. But, the other thing is they're like, well, what kind of incentives are we going to get? And so the fact that, Utah has previously been playing that game, it would be sad if they took those incentives away and we started seeing less film, because I think it's something that would hurt Grand County. So we've been lobbying for that.
So not to cut that.
Right. There's CJC funding, right now that's up on the table. And having there, it was that torture case. I mean, it was just heart wrenching, and I'm just so glad that we had that new center, there to help when something like that happens.
Yeah.
Now, our funding, it looks like we're not going to be affected, right? But there's tons of other spots out here in Utah. So even though it's not, actually affecting Grand County, it's super important that we're telling, the success of our CJC, of having those services and what it means to our community to have that for other places.
Okay.
So looking out for other spots in rural Utah to make sure that they're able to get that funding for the CJCs.
Okay.
And then the other one is the what would you call it? It would be the wildland interface. It's the clearing up of our creeks.
Okay.
Right. So making sure that we have that funding set ready for clearing up of our creeks.
Okay.
For rim to rim.
Yeah.
So that we can get keep those drainages clear.
Yeah.
Because it's that hits us both ways.
Yeah.
A, it's fire. Right, but then B, it's it's going to be our flooding.
Yeah.
So making sure that we're doing the best that we can clear those things up.
Yeah.
That's what we've been working up.
Yeah.
That's what I've been working up
Yeah.
for, at least on the legislature.
Cool. Well, and then that just made me. What do I want to ask? I mean, that was great. Great, you're filling us in what our county commissioners are doing. One thing I think people worry about is nuclear and data centers. Is there anything on that going on in Grand County?
In Grand County, nothing yet. But no, it's a hot topic right now up at the legislature.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sodium reactors, talking about bringing that, and then data centers, is there, like, where do you think where do you stand on that, and where is Grand County on that?
Gosh, I just don't know where.
You don't know, yeah.
No one's even approached us on.
Because a lot of that's like zoning and land use on there, and I'm like, maybe this is something we need to consider. I mean,
they go hand in hand, though.
I describe myself as an abundance type, like Ezra Klein, who's like, we do need energy, but it needs to be regulated, kind of thing. So, I mean, that's where I fall, if it was, but where do you think you fall on some of those things?
I'd like to hear I'd like to hear what's going on. I think that being informed is the first step.
Okay.
Right, before we go ahead and make any kind of decisions, what you were talking about is, the mini nuclear that is now is not the nuclear of the past.
Yeah.
Not saying that I'm sold either which way, but I would want to hear more about it.
Right. Because a lot of people in rural places are concerned that a data center goes in, it's using their water and driving up their electric bills. And honestly, I'm like, okay, what would concern me the most is higher electric bill.
There you go.
Like if it was out in the Cisco Desert, whatever.
Because from my understanding on the water, from what I heard, is it goes right back into the system, right? I mean, they're using that water. They're basically grabbing it. They're cooling off their system.
It's a closed loop.
It's a closed loop. So you're not losing much water with the newer data centers. At least that's what I've been told. Now, there's legislation for monitoring of that water, right? Which I think is a good idea. To be checking out what's going on.
You haven't heard anything in terms of movement here?
No.
Do you think Grand County needs to prep itself in any ways, maybe in land use things or anything?
I don't know. I haven't heard of anything coming in for data centers.
Yeah.
Nuclear, that might be something. I think they're looking across the whole state.
Yeah.
As far as places that they might be looking for nuclear. But I haven't heard anybody, coming on in. There's a group that's trying to go around and provide information, right, about nuclear. And I'd imagine we'd see them here. I think it was something like, each county's given like $10,000 to hold like information gatherings to teach people about what's happening. And I would imagine that we'll see something like that. So I wouldn't want to speak and say like, oh, this is what's going on or what's not going on.
So this group gives the county $10,000 to give a presentation?
No.
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 What was the 10?
They'll have 10 grand to hold public meetings and to teach folks about nuclear.
Okay.
Right.
That's why I was like,
yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Like, give me 10 grand.
Right.
You want to teach me about nuclear? I'll do that. Yeah.
No, I was just like, what perspective this coming from? Because I'm open-minded about it, and I think a lot of the younger, like, there was such a knee-jerk reaction against nuclear, but like personally, I think like the cleanest abundant energy, more people have died over petroleum wars than they have with nuclear accidents. There's an argument for it. So like I would be great unionized jobs, high paying jobs making nuclear, maybe. I don't know. That would be my I have friends that have worked down in the uranium mill in White Mesa, and I was surprised at how low paying they were. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I thought that would be like the cream job in San Juan County. And it wasn't. And I was like, what are you doing? But that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's anything that comes in, right, like that, there's going to be 2 things, right? Like, in Grand County, and, when you get back to like growth, one of the things you were talking about at the beginning, is this whole idea of growth. Right. And I think that when you fight growth, that you have no input on how change is actually made. Right. I think that when you actually have a productive conversation and actually are sitting there going, okay, well, tell me about this. Right. And you're going, okay, well, I could at least this much I can have. Right. Because as these things come in, right, or if these things do come in, I want to make sure that we're at least going to be benefiting from it economically so that you're not stuck with a bunch of low paying jobs. Right, that if something like this is coming in, right, there's actually ways that Grand County is going to benefit from this, rather than having something like this just come right over the top of us. So I mean, and that's
for sure.
And that's why I want to make sure that we're at least listening in these conversations. Finding out like really what is it? What do you guys want from us? Is Grand County even a place that this is going to happen? I mean, because they have, there's all kinds of like things that they would say, well, this is definitely a hurdle and we don't even want to deal with it. This is, this has got 2 hurdles. Like we don't want, it's a big state and there's lots of places that this might fit.
I just think that we have these not blank spaces, but remote spaces that no one's really around. We're near the Colorado if you can secure water rights or whatever, even if you run any closed loop system leaks. And then there's, major transmission lines that, we have some ingredients there to make it.
The other thing you're missing out on there, though, is the disposal part.
Yeah.
Right? Like you need to have that disposal piece, I think, is a big spot. Now, I mean, nobody wants that. Right? But that's a piece of it. As far as the data centers, I think that there is there's a little bit of legislation going on. And there's also quite a bit that's happening on with solar panels, too. Right, like what's going on with
solar farms? There's solar ag.
Dude, and one of the big things that they're talking about right now, which makes sense, and I know it's not super relevant to Grand County, but is we are putting solar over irrigated land. Like that's crazy. And it's one thing if you got you're a private party and you're like that's great, but if you're getting incentivized to cover up your farmland. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know that we're, trying to, cut water, but, we're also in a food deficit right now. That we import more food than we export. And that's not a good place for a nation to be.
Right.
So, thinking about that when we're doing that. And the other big thing with solar right now, which is something I think everybody in Utah should be paying attention to is, so the average lifespan of a solar panel, right? If you're a salesman, you say 30 years. If you're an actual user, you're saying 20 years. And we're coming to that 20, 25 year mark for a lot of people who first started embracing solar.
Okay.
So we're going to have a whole bunch of solar panels, right, that are going to be coming off the market. And where do you put those?
Right.
Like what's in them? Like, do we put those in the landfill and does that contaminate your landfill? How much, what size do we do with this? And it's one thing if it's like, a house, like, okay, great, we can throw our house solar panels in this, in the landfill, no big deal. But, what about a giant solar farm? Right? Like, what are we going to do with all of these things? Can we recycle them? And, figuring out what we're going to be doing with that.
Yeah.
Because those are unintended consequences of that energy as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure.
But yeah, there is some legislation dealing with that's coming in.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, any last closing comments or anything?
No. Thanks for giving me a chance to chat about what I've been up to.
Yeah, no, it's good to check in with the commissioners and seeing what you guys, with the legislative session, hearing them more explained. I think people have knee-jerk reactions. I think people have their minds made up a lot of times, and it's good also to hear a long format like, I have this whole other, thought process and stuff. So that's why I appreciate it.
It's been cool. It's a good idea. It's good to talk about all the things that we've been up to. Like I said, it's been a long year, and we've done a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I can't believe we just made it through an hour and a half, and we didn't even say the word e-bike.